Right, the recording has started. So today is the Aerial Robotics Community Group developer meeting. All right, that was one meeting too much. But today is June 5th, 2024. And we're just going to talk about some of the developments that are happening within our group of the last month. So the agenda is pretty simple. We're just going to have a couple of announcements. Then the subcommittees are going to give their updates, and we have a couple of discussion points, and then we'll end with a conclusion. And of course, like the updates for the next meeting. So on announcements, there's going to be like the ACUAS is this week. That's on the Aerial Vehicle or System conference that is actually in Greece, I think. So if anybody knows any more interesting papers that they've found there or happen to be there, but then they're not at this meeting. Just forward them like maybe on Discord or on the Discord channel. I actually already forwarded the ROS2 gazebo paper, so we interesting to see if we can find some source code for that. But just interesting to know. One of those conferences that I would have loved to go to, but time. Then also kind of like there's also soon going to be the Robotics ROS Developer Day, which is it's an online event of all kinds of tutorials being organized about different topics. I think it's on was it July 6th or something, but I have the let's say the I can add the link of it right here. It's on the 5th of July. So it's just a full day of these skill learning talks and expert interviews. And they invited me to give a talk about flying with a small quadcopter in ROS too. I think I've already shared that on Discord. I might need a bit of help because Weebots is out. So I'm forced to use Gazebo. Maybe that's a good thing. So it would be nice if I'm able to turn this talk into some kind of like getting started tutorial as well. I might ask some questions on Discord demo at one point. Also, this is the same organization, the construct that organized the ROS Awards, which I will also share the link in the chat here.
Maybe we guys could...
Sorry, Mayank?
Kim, we might be able to help you. We might be able to help you with beta testing your IPython notebook or something as well, in case you want to iron out some bugs. So that might be helpful before doing it on the actual day, so that if there are any small bugs or any difficulties in the instructions.
They'll be very helpful indeed. I do have to do it in their special online platform called ROSjects. So I'm not sure if they are willing to let me share those with you, because I think they would like to have those only present on the. But like what I'm kind of trying to do is still like have the GitHub repository, and that I'll try to like do it on my local and on the ROSject as well, just to make development a little bit easier for myself. Of course, I'll keep it in mind. I'll be going on a holiday the next 4 days, so I won't be able to work on it. But cool, thanks. And going back, I just shared the link to also the ROS Awards, which the construct, which is also the organizer of the Robotics Developer Day. They give an award every year for the best developer, the best robotic platform, and the best ROS software, ROS robot, and ROS developer. So in terms of the best ROS robots, we have a few UAVs in there, but there could be more. Maybe somebody put the Crazy Fly in there. I won't say who. But of course, if you have a really nice ROS robot, because the Crazy Fly cannot. Well, micro ROS, it's also ROS. But please add more UAV systems in there. So because hashtag UAVs are robots too. So that's it for all the announcements. So Yeah, so let's go through the update of the subcommittees. Yeah, so Mayank, perhaps you can give the update of yeah, what's been going on in indoor navigation.
Yeah, on mine, I was trying to install Aerostack 2 from source so that I could use it with the appropriate gazebo harmonic. And for that, I had to figure out what to uninstall and how things work. And it took some effort, but and I think I still have this DJI OSDK package crashing, but the build for me works if I exclude just that one package. And with that, at least the overall build and basic sourcing and some launches were working. I've not updated the ticket yet because the gazebo example itself I haven't been able to run.
Mhm.
I'll try to maybe share more on the ticket after spending some time on it. So what happens is that when I run the default ROS to launch, logs look all clean, but gazebo just doesn't show up. So I don't know what's wrong. It's something, I think it's some config or some basic install or something where I need to maybe increase the verbosity of the logs. But yeah, the previous issue which I had reported, wherein without harmonic by using Fortress, like whatever the default tutorial is, that somehow just worked for me after a reboot. So that was the strangest thing ever. So when we last spoke, I was stuck on getting Fortress plus AS2 working. That just worked after the reboot, and I was unable to replicate the issue I initially faced. So with that, I felt there's not much sense in spending effort on sticking to Fortress. So I just started try to build Harmonic plus AS2 from source. So I spent some effort there. And then on another weekend, maybe on a slightly unrelated note, I was really pissed off about not getting my ducky drone flying, even though I have built it like 6 or even maybe 7 months ago. And the main reason for me was that the prop guards like are not the best on the old design on DD21. The new one, they've done a very good job.
Mhm.
But basically what ends up happening is that if it drifts away too far, it bumps into a wall and the propeller guards. Uh, oh, they even removed it? Wait.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't think it's there anymore. But please continue. I'll just try to find it.
yeah. Yeah, and what is happening for me is essentially if I just follow the default tutorials and I try to get it to hover, it does not hover in place. It kind of does with optical flow and all working, but the height is very less. So there are, I think, some idle throttles which need to be tweaked as per the payload, or like I think there's enough variation in the motors that the idle throttles, even after ESC calibration, need to be modified. And for that, there are a lot of magic numbers littered across the code base. It's not like it all comes through a launch file where I can cleanly, set those parameters. I actually had to go through the entire Python package code base and understand the overall flow, right from their JavaScript front end for the teleop all the way through the PID controller and the PID classes. So it was a very interesting learning experience. I think I have a better hold of the entire Python ecosystem and how it works. But it was a bit frustrating because this thing still won't hover. I think I know more about the code base, but there seems to be some place where the parameters getting overridden. I was in talks with Davide Iafra from Ducky Town, and like he was giving me some suggestions. Um, so yeah, that's also something I have to try out. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, those are the two updates from my end. I don't know, Bunolo, do you have some update?
No, I don't have anything this week.
All right.
I one
Oh, sorry.
quick second. Uh, I found this guy. Can anybody see the prop guards? You see this?
Yeah.
The propeller is actually extending beyond the carbon fiber prop guard.
Yeah.
So these are basically either built for smaller props or useless at best. So like I need like a prop guard which comes to the side. And if you see the
Mhm.
design on the page that Kim is showing, it's a much more mature and a much better design. Although the
Mhm.
carbon fiber circles look a bit thin and fragile, but I think overall the fake ducts will do a better job saving your props and the hardware than what's there on the older design.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
guess
not
that's
that good at
part of
that.
the feedback that we gave them when they gave the presentation. At
Yeah,
least
yeah.
that was some they perhaps have listened. So
No, I was
yeah, so
involved in the initial. I was involved in the initial design meeting, so I gave them a lot of references and sources for when they were doing
Mhm.
the basic design. So I was there for the
Ah,
early discussions. And yeah,
mhm. Yeah, so yeah, because this definitely looks a lot more serious. So like for everybody who doesn't know the concept, like the one that Mayank showed in his video is the DD21, which is the previous version, and this is the DD24, which is soon going to be out, so you can pre-order it already. And it's also in the yeah, so you can kind of like watch it here, but you can also access it through yeah, the Aerial Robotic landscape. We just updated it because we had a very nice update by I think Andrew. Is that the Andrew that gave the PR?
Yeah, this is me.
Awesome. It's already out. But yeah, let's see what we can do with the DocuDrone. Then we can just yeah, put this to discontinued, unfortunately, because now it's literally it's not even there anymore. But yeah, it would be nice to maybe try out the new DD24.
yeah. They've also done some other cool stuff. If you go back to the DD24, they've made the downward-facing optical flow camera, the PiCam, like on an angular mount, so that instead of just being vertically down, maybe if you click on the first photo, it'll zoom in or something. It's kind of at a tilt at a variable angle. You see the front, that camera?
Yeah, I
So
can
yeah.
see it. Yeah.
So the thought
So you
process
can
there
go.
was that beyond optical flow, if you want to do anything else with that camera feed, maybe do some semantic segmentation or like some object detection, some basic stuff that you want to do, or maybe some classical algorithms, you could go and do that as well. So maybe try a wide FOV lens if you want, or basically be able to have a better coverage of what is ahead of the drone instead of just simply looking down purely for optical flow purposes. So that was one
Mhm.
thing. And I don't think you can see it here, but if you go to one of the other photos, there are four time of flight sensors, four or five, which they've added. So the older one only had one looking down for altitude control. They've kind of put a skirt around it at like these angles. Yeah, I don't know if it's here. Click that small video. There was a
The
very
video.
pretty video. Yeah, just try that because they had a very nice video of. Yeah, this is it.
Mm.
So if you see, this was very nicely done. You'll see so they're using this PDB F4 modern flight stack, which people use for FPV. So that's a big upgrade in terms of the flight controller as well. We'll probably switch to
Mm-hmm.
beta flight instead of full flight. Raspberry Pi 5 or like one of the newer ones is there. The duck goes there. But yeah, now if you look, soon they'll be having the time of flight sensors. And those go into this custom shield board, which is there on the top. Yeah, see this. So these are the VLO35. I'm forgetting the model number, but yeah, those basically those time of flight sensors. One goes on the bottom for altitude, and then you have like four all around for
Mm-hmm.
like a sensor skirt. So you can do basic object like obstacle detection. I think similar to what I've seen with somebody do with the Crazy Fly, where you have like maybe it was your work as well, right? Where you had a sensor skirt on it.
Yeah,
Kim, when you were
like
sourcing.
the multi range kind of goes in that same direction, like in four direction and also top.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
I just have to update.
yeah. But yeah, like some cool design decisions and more stuff to play with on the new one.
Yeah, it's quite cool. Like Khaled, do you have a question?
Yep. what, which software stack does they use? Do they use their own software stack or Pix4?
It-
Yeah, SPDB.
So,
Yeah.
Use
so
PDB.
base,
So what I think is beta flights that they probably use.
yeah,
So
so
they
there are
have their own microcontroller over the board or what?
so basically they run either beta flight or clean flight. I'm not sure what's going to come out on DD24. On the DD21, they have clean flight running as the flight controller. So that's
Mhm.
usually used more for FPV drones and things like that. And on the Raspberry Pi itself, they use something called the PyDrone package. You can check it out. It's relatively simple and straightforward, and it has like a PID controller running on it. It has optical flow for it. There is a web UI which allows for teleoperation and also things like adjusting some thresholds and velocity mode or something. But yeah, the PyDrone package. I mean, if you go through the Ducky Town docs, you'll find the specifics. But you have to bear in mind this is not built for advanced research on indoor autonomy. It's more about a learning platform to get people introduced. No, I don't think this is it. I'll
So
look for it.
it is quite amazing, I would say. Yeah, thank you. So
Yeah.
thank you, Kim. Thank you.
So like
Yeah,
in the
I'll
meantime,
share the link in the chat.
you can maybe like if this is not the right GitHub repository for PyDrone. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so it would be nice to maybe add that to the aerial robotic landscape as well, if it hasn't already.
Yeah.
But I think it would be good to maybe continue to the next subcommittee, because we technically only have two now. So let me just go back to the presentation. Yes. Yeah, so yeah, Wisenars already said that there wasn't that many updates that they had to share. So I'll just get a quick look of the GitHub project, so we can just have a quick view on that. Yeah, so there's not that much to do. I think for the to do for last time was like the Reese advice to maybe make a list of landscapes for gazebo that might be useful for how do you say for aerial robotics, like indoor and autonomy and everything. But currently there's no issue for that open yet. So we'll just leave it at that. And I think the same thing for like outdoor. Let's just very quickly like currently the subcommittees kind of like handle their development work on GitHub projects for anybody that's not there. So there seems to be still some activity going on, although I don't see anything that's being updated in there. So if I look at the last update of this particular GitHub planning, is the outdoor is updated last was in April, so there is not that much activity there either. Yeah, so but let me just take a quick look to documentation, because that has been updated 40 minutes ago. So like me and Alexis have been pretty active with it. I guess like the most recent one was, of course, like that we've made the website ready with MK docs to kind of be released. I can kind of also show you the I now currently put some very easy tracking on Code Counter, which is a cookieless counter, and we definitely do have some traffic, but it could be better. Let's say I don't think that many people. This is when we launched on Discord. This is when I wrote a blog post at Bitgrace, which gave it a couple of more extra visits. We're kind of waiting for Ramon to. He has some sort of plan of releasing it more on the social media, like LinkedIn and things like that, to provide that with a graphic. So we're kind of waiting for that, and once that happens, then we'll share it on Discord, and if everybody can just repost. Yeah, but it's one of those things that I think it's more of like a marathon to really make this useful. Yeah, and it's also, as you can already see, it needs constant updating. So people just need to be aware of this. Marjan?
I was just saying that when you do the launch on LinkedIn, one potential angle could be showing maybe the research approach we are taking, and how even though this is maybe ROS and an open source developer community, we're trying to do the same level of due diligence that somebody would do in either their master's thesis or their PhD work, wherein you're trying to understand the landscape, see the state of the art and then go into the components and figure out what to work on before you actually dive down into a package and things like that. So that could be one
Mm-hmm.
potential angle or one potential narrative you could build around the rigor or the thought process
Mm-hmm.
of this approach and how it has benefited people in academia and how we're trying to bring that to the open source community and things like that as well. Because quite often, if people come from a pure tech perspective, they're very blind and they just want to jump in and get their hands dirty. But often it takes some patience and maturity to take a step back and maybe even spend a lot of time planning and discussing what to work on before even doing something. Of course, there's a trade-off
Mm-hmm.
of actually then doing and building something small to start with. But yeah, like um, I think your Roscon talk and all that could be like nice overall context and drive the narrative for that.
Yeah, I guess there's two approaches that you can take with this, of course. Like you have the industry part and the academia part, although there's a lot of overlaps in how you would approach things, but it also kind of depends how much time is given to you, which is usually a lot. So and sometimes you don't really even have like it's perhaps a little bit rare in the sense of like that you really have to build everything from scratch. Like, you see if they say like, we're using this platform, this is an in-house developed platform, that's just what you have to take. But then you probably have to kind of build up everything else. Yeah. So it's, I guess like what I would envision, but I have to kind of discuss with Ramon, he's not here right now, is perhaps like, to have him have a post and then I do like more of the academic approach. Because my network on LinkedIn is definitely more on the academic side. And then we can kind of like see from there how things go. But yeah, definitely very good points.
Because usually what ends up happening is most open source projects are like just about that one project, which is trying to do something, and then a lot of documentation on how to use that project, how that plugs into other stuff. I think there's very few instances out there where we have a meta-analysis of some sort, wherein you have a study or you have a knowledge base which is being proactively built by a community. That is not so common as far as I know. It's more about, hey, this is our cool new shiny toy, this is how it works, and you have so much docs explaining how to use this at one big project or something. But it's very rare that you see people coming from community to do like a knowledge landscape kind of activity. So that in
Yeah.
itself is like a good angle to sell.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is definitely yeah, and that's kind of I think like this is definitely like a thing that we really did together, and hopefully it's really going to improve it for many others. I think Manolo, did you had a comment?
Oh, yes, I think I answered my own question. I was going to ask whether we should use GitHub to edit this new website, but I saw at the top it said edit on GitHub.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's indeed. It should indeed be edited on GitHub, and then the nice thing is that it goes directly. That link goes directly there. And also, if you go to the main page of the Aerial Robotic landscape, it has like Ramon made a nice contributing guide here as well. So that's kind of like quick changes in GitHub, and yeah, and I guess like in the sense of, oh, I need to fix this, but it's supposed to be a proper list. I'll fix it later. Yeah, and how to kind of like make a PR, and if I guess like if there's any bigger change that needs to be added, like I would say like then issue. But let's see how many people would like to join, like and contribute, of course.
Yeah.
What was it again? I think Andrew, you had a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is this like the topic of the robotic landscape, like how we sell it, how we pitch it?
Yeah, kind of like we're now talking about like the work that the subcommittee of documentation has done, which I'm a part of, and like our next step, at least on our project, is to of course, like next to the improvements that we can do to the website itself, is to make it more public.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think I commented on you made like an issue on GitHub. I was gonna say like software and hardware compatibility is huge, especially with the different stacks. Like which software is compatible with ROS 2 out of the box, and then you get into the hardware. camera compatibility with this this companion computer. I think that's a good selling point.
Yeah, that's a good that's indeed a good point. Let me just very quickly go back to the let's say the projects, documentation products, and see if we have this these issues in there already. Yeah, that's documentation. So I don't think we have, but I guess like we can put it like improvement of, or like provide a graph of stock levels and update. It would be also nice indeed to provide a graph with like the possible sensors and if it's ROS 1, ROS 2 supported. Yeah, definitely. Let's add that as well. Oh, I see that you've already added that. Thank you. Very good point. Yeah. Awesome.
So I found on my website, because I have a robotics blog, and I found that the pages that do well are not the ones that I think are going to do well. It's normally when I answer a really specific niche question. Like a couple of years ago, I wrote about how to use Vim as an IDE, and I guess it was just so specific that Google was sending people to the blog. And then I have one about like how to use Python to extract image data from ROSBAGs. But the ones that I pour my heart and soul into, like entire setup guides for like robots and how to configure your drone and things, they don't actually, in terms of the numbers, the ones that do really well are the ones that are linked by other people on GitHub, because they were trying to solve a very specific problem. So for in the context of our website here, I think once we start having really niche specific tutorials, they don't even have to be that long, but just something that annoys you, that you will encounter when you're working with an aerial robot, and you just like show someone how to fix it. So for example, one thing that I didn't know was how to select the battery capacity, because I was looking at the tutorial guide, and they had a specific power rating for the battery, and I couldn't find it in my country, and I was like obsessed about finding that specific battery, but it turns out that an entire range was possible, and then I found the battery, but it had the wrong connector, and I didn't know that you can get like connector adapters. And so it was just like the stumbling into knowledge to eventually get things. But if we just had a tutorial that just said, my battery doesn't fit my drone, and then we showed all the different ways to hack this, people come to the website and then they start looking at other things.
Yeah, exactly. These are things that people would actually Google on. So yeah, that's very good.
I think the more niche something is, your SEO goes up. So, for example, even I was thinking, if I actually get Aerostack 2 working from source with Gazebo Harmonic, if there are not enough guides out there, we could just start like a guide section or a to-do section, like a how-to kind of section on the documentation front, and start to collect those pieces there. Because the more formal versions of the setup guides might go into the final, let's say, project itself that we do, but maybe a small work in progress hacky thing we throw together that at least works for now. Because a lot of these things finally end up as neatly packaged solutions. Like, for example, Aerostack 2, right? Right now Jazzy is coming out, and we have probably going to have Debian package support natively sometime in the near future. But until then, there will be this niche of a short-lived time where people want to just run Gazebo, Fortress with, sorry, not Fortress, but the new one, Harmonic, with Aerostack 2 on ROS 2. So even though it's a short-lived thing, it'll be such a specific niche kind of how-to that it can attract more traffic.
Yeah. Or how to kind of like migrate from Fortress or Harmonic, or just
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I guess
like
that we take for granted.
Yeah, But then I guess it's also kind of like, is then we have to talk about the philosophy of like the landscape in that sense. Like, is that for instance like a page then on the landscape itself, or is it then better, for instance, one of us actually write a blog post about it and just refers to it, like that. So that's perhaps also kind of like something that we can. But it depends on like how big it is. If it's just like a small piece of text, yeah. But yeah, it's all very good points. I think there were a couple of other questions. I think let me just first look at the one from Alex. It would be great to have a tool that dynamically allows anybody to check compatibility with different aspects. Yes, also. Sounds a little bit more work, indeed. I'm not sure if something like that automatically exists, but definitely. I don't know if you guys saw the website I shared on Discord. It was really interesting. I don't know if anybody tried it before. The quad part picker.
Yeah, it's like a PC part picker. So there's a very popular website for building your own PCs called PC Part Picker. This is entirely like a ripoff or inspired from that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very extensive. And it's also kind of like, okay, if you pick a couple of parts, then some of the other parts that are, of course, not compatible, they just are excluded from, like, it's, whoa, this is pretty cool. So we definitely should put this on the aerial robotic landscape as well, I think, like both. Yeah, FPV, drone people will definitely, but maybe maybe those that want to make more a custom drone as well. Alexis?
Yes. First of all, morning. Hope you're
Morning.
doing. And yes, I think there will be a feature that can be studied later once we have a more nourished content. Because for now, it's good to know that we could do that. If I know that that involves a lot of work, I know that that might be a bit harder than it looks, but yeah, I think that's a good starting point from quad part picker and FPV. So yeah, but also to include the software and middleware that can be placed into that, and what other flight stacks you can place, simulation.
Yeah, the whole works, let's say,
Yeah.
like the whole development, not only the quads, like the whole framework. Yeah, I would love that in the future. Would save
Yeah,
so much.
and be built on top of the hardware, like the ones that are already provided on the internet. So it can even be cut out of there. So I think that's something we could consider, and that might look attractive for people that are visiting the site. So yeah, it might be a great feature to have.
I'm just sharing the. Oh no, wait, that's not. That is not the URL from the Robotic page. Nobody. There you go. This is the one. I should at one point just make like a custom one indeed. All right, yeah, but thanks, Alexis. I think this would be definitely a nice, goal start to aim towards. Did anybody else had a comment? Because at one point there was a lot of hands up, but I don't see them up anymore. All right, then I'll.
There was another website I'd used called Rotor Builds in the past. This did not do compatibility and doesn't look as cool as Quad Part Picker, but it's like an easy way to share your parts list. So like if you have a community and you just want to know what are combinations that people have used in the past with some rough estimate of like how much any of those parts cost. I shared the link in the chat for one of the builds that I had done. It's my
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the FPV build. I think I've shown it at some point in a previous call, but yeah, that's basically what I did after looking at other people and compatibility. So rotor builds is also something which is very popular, at least in the FPV community. I haven't seen pod part picker being used so much, but it definitely looks very cool.
All right, let's perhaps we should definitely add these. So let's at least make an issue where we can add these two links, like from quad part picker and rotor builds. At least we remind ourselves to add it to. I think definitely this is a hardware page one. Yeah, cool, awesome. So let me just, I think that is kind of like the update of the subcommittees itself, but luckily one of the topics that I had at the discussion was to actually discuss the aerial robotic landscape. And we kind of discussed that. So that was a nice bridge. Ta-da! Oh no, actually, I wasn't meaning to discuss that because Ryan wanted to talk about custom modes in PS4 and ROS, and he's not here right now. Perhaps what I could suggest is maybe to get a bit of the evaluation of how maybe like the developer meetings are going so far. Like it's close to going to be to summer, and everybody's going to take it a little bit easier. I think it's also maybe a good way to maybe see or reevaluate how things are going. Like at least like what my view is of like how it's going with the subcommittees, like having a topic per committee and everybody kind of contributes to like the same GitHub project. It seemed like a good idea, and I feel also that those that kind of lead it, they kind of have like a sense of empowerment. But I having a bit of doubt if it's like, the right approach of how to do things. The reason that I think that is that, for instance, like how we started, actually, how we came up with the idea is because Ryan, Jay started with, and Maurice has started with the outdoor, outdoor planning project, which was based around a project. So they did a lot of work on that, and that is now kind of like at an end right now. It's like, okay, that's outdoor planning, maybe do indoor planning simulation. And I sent out that questionnaire a while ago, and I made those subcommittees together. But it seems to me it's a bit difficult to really coordinate together or find like really development goals based on that. Which makes me think like maybe we should maybe drop this subcommittee thing and maybe focus a bit more project-based instead of subcommittee-based. Like for instance, project like let's fix Aerostack has simulation in there, indoor planning, or like the aerial robotic landscape, technically something that we're all working on together, right? So those are just my thoughts. I don't know if anybody would like to chip in on that. It's not something that we immediately need to change now, but it's maybe something for after the summer.
I think we were a bit thinking of scale and a bit ambitious in terms of thinking that there'll be enough people in each subcommittee solely focusing on those aspects. But what we've seen is the opposite, wherein the team sizes are fairly small. Like, for example, indoor, it's mainly me and Bonono who are a bit active. In outdoor, it's basically Ryan and like Reese, and somebody else who's helping out, Jay or somebody else. And in simulation, it's mainly just Reese and Ash. So with a team size of this scale, where there's a lot of overlap in between things. For example, simulation ties into everything, and like you said, aerial landscape goes into everything. We could just go with a project-based model and think about concrete milestones that we want on each project. So we pick a project, we decide maybe 3-4 tasks on it. Time commitments and how quickly we get to the goal will, of course, be something we calibrate and we see how we plan it out. But yeah, at least while the team is small, it does maybe in some ways make sense to think of it wherein we're all like a bunch of resources who could help out with certain aspects of each of these projects that we're working on. Maybe somebody comes with some specific expertise. So let's say whether it's indoor or outdoor or regarding documentation, you have Breeze and Arsha as experts to help out on those aspects and who are more likely to take up those issues because of the skill sets. But yeah, I think it makes sense to try out a project-based approach.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very good input. Thanks. Pasquale, you had a question or comment?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Just to say that I'm new for this working group. So for me, it's a little bit difficult to understand, let's say, the state of art of the project. And so it could be useful for me to understand the common environment for everyone. So everyone will use that kind of environment. So from there, we can develop the new version of software. And I don't know, through my experience, it could be useful to define a different version of software where, for example, in one release, the group wants to develop some functionalities, and then that release software will be closed. I know that it's something that probably is already done in the group. So in fact, sorry for that, I'm new. So I'm trying to understand the state of art, and it's a little bit difficult for me. But probably it's my problem only. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like I think indeed, I feel also one of my doubts, like also in things that has been going, is that indeed the way of overview, or the group shared goal is a bit scattered, let's say. But actually, just to come back to your specific question on what is the common development environment, we did make a decision on that last developer meeting. Is that what we would like to do is do Ubuntu 22.04 with Ross Humble. However, we would like to develop for Gazebo Garden because both the PX4
Harmonic, right?
Oh, sorry. Yes, you're absolutely right. Harmonic, yes. So it's Ross Humble and Gazebo Harmonic. Although Gazebo Harmonic is actually officially the one for Jazzy, it is the one that PX4 and Autopilot are actively developing in for Ubuntu 22.04 and Humble. So that means is that you would need to that the bridge is need to be compiled from source, or maybe they do have it available as a package. So yeah, that's the current development platform that we advise. I don't think we have it written down anywhere specific, but that's only the development environment. Let's say it's not the common projects that we're all working together, so like Aerostack 2 or things like that. I hope at least that answers your question.
Yeah, so. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
And to add to that, in terms of flight controllers, there's nothing stopping us from having PX4 or Autopilot, but at least until now, we've had more development on the outdoor navigation front with Autopilot. And even for looking into indoor navigation, we were looking into some work which was done as a part of a Google Summer of Code project by some student on Autopilot as well. So while there's no de facto alignment or agreement of a common flight controller, but maybe this helps you rule out things like clean flight, beta flight, or some other aggressive flight controller stacks. And we are mostly developers coming from some exposure to PX4 or Autopilot.
Let me just also kind of share at least because the aerial robotic landscape was also kind of made for people that are kind of getting started or need to have more information about the aerial robotics as well. And we should have aerial autonomy stacks. Yeah, we don't have a general advice now. And also here you have Autopilot and PX4 and everything. We have people from different sides of the former bases. Like I myself am from the company that made the Crazyfly, so Crazyfly firmware. But there's a couple of us that are working on PX4. And for instance, outdoor navigation group, they were specifically working on the peaks for terrain navigation project, which they also kind of like converted to autopilot as well. So we're autopilot suite fluid, maybe for now. But it would be nice to kind of like coordinate that better. But let's see how things are going. But that's at least like that's what you also can kind of see here on the landscape as well. But if you have any questions on terms of like what people are more actively using right now, then I would say just drop a message in the Discord channel of the group, or to start up a discussion in discourse, just to kind of say like, okay, what is a snapshot of now? What are people using? I think that's probably the best approach. Although that the group itself doesn't have a recommendation at this moment, we can always say like, this is what we're using right now, what we can provide you with the best help with.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody else that would like to comment? About the way that subcommittees are handled. Yes,
I had a question. Let's say we move from subcommittees to projects. And let's say we stick to the projects that we're currently working on. Like, let's say there's one specific thing that Reese is looking at. I'm trying out Aerostack 2 mostly. And Ryan is working on a specific thing. How would that change things on the ground? Like, we are not explicitly stopping anybody from one subcommittee from helping out in another anyway, right? So how do you envision or imagine it helping things or improving things by going from subcommittees to a project basis?
Yeah, I don't think the one excludes the other. Like, if you are working on Aerostack 2 project, for instance, and then suddenly someone's like, hey, I'm currently working on this, feature improvement or implementation of Gazebo. I don't think anybody can tell anybody what to do in the sense of like, oh no, you're already on Aerostack 2. So it's we're all on voluntary basis, and if you have the time, why not both, right? So and I think maybe the project-based one is actually going to help more because you have less separation of tasks, in a sense, and especially with all these autonomy type packages, have a combination involved. So and I think also you had a very good point before that you were saying it's let's see, what was your specifically point that you were
the small teams
exactly, yeah. So we have the whole thing is that when I did the questionnaire, I had 30 people that answered back. So I thought that we had too many people, so we had to split it up. But now now that's the core has stayed, it's a little bit smaller than
So are you saying that basically project tracking could be improved because potentially we could then use a single issue board for all the tasks that we're doing? Or would that still be reprobate?
Maybe we should do a big board, because I think it would be nice to kind of have kind of a sense of togetherness, and that we're going towards something, even if it's maybe linked to different projects. We can just all put them in one common board, but then we can perhaps use categories or labels to kind of okay, this is more simulation based, or this is more outdoor based. Or but not completely separate them. Labels can help.
Yeah, the labels could also help capture overlaps, because there's so many projects with so much overlaps that you can look at it and in an instant say, okay, this is simulation plus indoor, this is simulation plus outdoor. Because so many of the things we're looking at right now are overlapping. That potentially, exactly. If I come up with some new thing of the setup document and all, then that's potentially this plus documentation, indoor plus. Sim plus doc. Yeah, makes sense.
Yes. Is there anybody else, at least from the subcommittee or newcomers, that have any comment on the way that it has been done in the last 5 months, 4 months? Maybe some other suggestions, or do you agree? Oh yeah, Khaled, go.
I think your idea is a nice idea, and being flexible to try new things. So we tried it this way, and maybe tried the other way. If there might be another idea, or we figured out that the old way was better, then I think we have the flexibility to change back. So I think it's quite a nice idea to at least be a little bit oriented on what we are working on. So it will help us a little bit, and it will. It's like it will be like the torch that will help us moving forward as a community, I would say. So it might be a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. It's and also there's also kind of like a sense of completion, right? Because all the subcommittees by itself, simulation is never going to be perfect. Indoor navigation never going to be perfect. So there's not really a end to any of the subcommittees.
Yeah.
And that's why me and Ramon were trying to also kind of push. Okay, we need more goals, right? We need more goals.
That's true. But the tricky part will be how can we define a project, or how can we set up an objective for a project? That would be a tricky part, but I think it will be doable. We have UChem, so we have everything.
Yeah, like I think we'll probably, because we kind of have to continue, or at least like there's now 5 minutes left on the clock. So I think it's best to kind of like leave it at that. But I think I will just take the summer also to kind of like let's just leave it as it is right now, and everybody just works on the topic that they have. But I'll try to think a bit about like maybe like more of a project approach, like we talked about before. I can also kind of like get some feedback of Ramon as well once he is a little bit less busy, and then I can present it at one of the like, you know, in a couple of months once we can get started on how we can try to change things up. If people indeed like find the appeal of more project-based committees or groups or just projects more appealing.
It would help if you can explicitly write down specific things we are trying to achieve that you think we fell short of with the subcommittee approach, and that we will try to address by changing this approach. It'll just set expectations, right, and maybe even help convince ourselves why we want to try it out. And it's kind of like traceability for certain design decisions, right? Let's say tomorrow if we come back to subcommittees or we want to do something third, we would know the trade-off analysis of one approach versus the other at a meta level. So I think instead of gut feeling, if we have explicitly written down that, hey, I think it could be still opinion-based. We could have votes for how many people thought that we didn't feel like we were moving forward, or we didn't have concrete goals. Like those could be kind of questions we have. But just writing down the explicit metrics or what we thought we fell short of could be a good starting point for how we want to change the process.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, and I'll make sure to add those. I might even start a discourse discussion so we can kind of like set out our thoughts in that as well, so that more people can join than just us here at the meeting today. Yeah. Oh wait. Let me just add the title. I was. So I think it's probably, yeah. So it's now time to kind of conclude. But I think we had a nice room for discussion. It was a little less rushed because we had less subcommittees. Maybe this is something. So the next meeting is not it is a presentation meeting. It's on Wednesday, 19th of June. 19th of June. And Khalid will actually talk about their platform, and the presentation title is called A New Generation of Flight Controllers. So yeah, to make sure that you're there, that's in 2 weeks from now. So that's going to be quite exciting. GitHub organization for the working group is github.com/rosh-aerial, and of course, like the aerial robotic landscape, it's there. Please contribute and make it awesome. Also for like meeting information or like meeting joining information, the ROS Aerial or the discourse. The ROS discourse is where we announce our meetings as well. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for joining, and talk to you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Kim.